Now, James, this is one of the joys of how harmonious a country that we are. Again, in the same way that a kid from Housing Commission can end up being the alternative Prime Minister, a kid from the suburbs can end up being the Prime Minister, all of these things that we love about our country all day, every day, and we've all got our own personal stories about why we weren't born to rule. It's a wonderful thing about our country. But also one of the great stories is the immigration story, and part of that is people who, when you come to the big, beautiful land that this joint is, you have to adopt the how good is this? And sure, you might take an active interest in whence you came, but you don't start burning the flags of other countries in the streets of our cities because of what's happening on the other side of the world.
And what I wonder, Paul, is whether this woman who is walking around burning an Israeli flag, whether if instead of the rockets from Hamas were raining down on Tel Aviv, the rockets from Hamas were raining down on Lakemba, I wonder what she would feel about that. I wonder what response she would expect from the Australian Defence Force on her behalf. I suspect she'd want them to respond pretty strongly. I suspect she'd want them to go after the people that were sending those rockets, raining them down on her family and her friends and her neighbours. I suspect she'd want no mercy towards the terrorists who did that. And no sympathy for them. And I think she'd be right if that's how she felt. But to disassociate herself from the Israeli people who are under this bombardment, literally hundreds of rockets falling indiscriminately on neighbourhoods, on schools, on buses, killing small children. Instead, she thinks the appropriate response is to burn an Israeli flag. I think that says something very sad about how some people in our community have just disassociated themselves completely from the suffering of other people.